This week, we see the start of what could be the final stage of war. With the election settled, the main focus is now on what can the generals do? From Thomas's sparring with the incredibly weakened army of Hood, to Sheridan's rampage against the undefended Valley, to Sherman's innovative operation which goes unopposed, we see a Union army already triumphant that just needs to realize it. The 12th, Thomas sends an uncharacteristically aggressive telegram to General Sherman, promising the complete destruction of Hood's army unless they beat a hasty retreat. Sherman, having his own goals, sends a quick response, boiling down to an acknowledgement, and leaves his main lines of communications. Both officers are now in their own campaigns. Thomas oversees Tennessee, with the main threat being Hood, who spends the week collecting his forces and marching. The secondary threat of General Breckinridge continues his battle around Bull's Gap, and reaches the Strawberry Plains before he pulls back to Virginia. I don't know what that was supposed to do. The real development is that the Army of Tennessee has now crossed the Tennessee River. Sherman is putting the finishing touches on his march. The 14th sees an unexpected explosion in Atlanta. The hellish background illuminates the Corps' advance.
Away off in the distance, on McDonough Road, was the rear of Howard's column, the gun barrels glistening in the sun, the white-topped wagons stretching away to the south. And right before us, the 14th Corps, marching steadily and rapidly, with a cheery look and swinging pace that made light of the 1,000 miles that lay between us and Richmond. Some band, by accident, struck up the anthem of John Brown's body. The men caught up the strain, and never before or since have I heard the chorus of Glory, Glory, Hallelujah done with more spirit or in better harmony of time and place.
While his march is largely uncontested, the cavalry of Judson Kilpatrick and Wheeler skirmish at Jonesboro. The left wing made up of the 14th and 20th Corps is already threatening Augusta, keeping both the enemy and his own men guessing their true intention. As the men advance, they leave behind Sherman's neckties, a twisting of railroads to render them useless. As the week goes on, the 14th Corps walks through Covington. The right wing meets stiffer resistance as Wheeler continues to harass them. The 16th at Lovejoy Station sees a minor victory, capturing 50 Confederates and 2 cannons. Sherman's force of 60,000 outnumbers Wheeler's 3,500 cavalry, and the 3,000 under-trained and under-equipped Georgia militia. We must now talk about bummers.
No doubt, many acts of pillage, robbery, and violence were committed by these parties of foragers, usually called bummers, for I have since heard of the jewelry taken from women and the plunder of articles that never reached the commissary. But these acts were exceptional and incidental. I never heard of any cases of murder or rape, and no army could have carried along sufficient food and forage for a march of 300 miles, so that foraging in some shape was necessary. The country was sparsely settled, with no magistrates or civil authorities who could respond to requisitions, as is done in all the wars of Europe, so that this system of foraging was simply indispensable to our success.
This final claim regarding rape is ridiculous. I've heard some say Sherman later walked this back, as we do have reports of sexual assault. 64 of these bummers were killed, and their bodies laid on the side of the road as a warning to any other would-be criminals. Let's have some miscellaneous mischief. On the high seas, the CSS Shenandoah, one of the latest additions to the Confederate Navy, has reached the equator. The 12th, it captures 2 ships, and on the 13th, the tally increases to 3. On the topic of rebel pests, Jubal Early, in a desperate attempt to restrict the victorious Sheridan, moves back to New Market, but is further weakened as more of his troops are sent to General Lee. On the topic of Sheridan, the 14th, he receives a promotion to Major General in the regular army, who's already a Major General in the volunteers. Ranks are confusing. As one general rises, another must fall. General George B. McClellan, after his electoral loss, has his resignation accepted. Lincoln, not yet done with the dealings of generals, writes to Hurlbut in Louisiana.
Few things, since I have been here, have impressed me more painfully than what, for 4 or 5 months past, has appeared as a bitter military opposition to the new state government of Louisiana. I still indulge some hope that was mistaken the fact, but...
He then goes on to list a long list of evidence of said military opposition. This will we respond to with denial, but this correspondence from Lincoln isn't asking for clarification, but a threat to those seeking to weaken the state government. The final action of Lincoln on the 17th, he expresses gratitude for his electoral victory.
He might go further and say that in as large proportion as any other man, His pleasure consisted in the belief that the policy he had pursued would be the best, and the only one that could save the country. These who have differed from us and opposed us would see that it was better for their own good that they have been defeated.
I must admit I find that last bit quite humorous. Wickham's counterpart is in no celebration of victory, but instead hyper-focused on keeping Georgia and his nation. The 17th, he writes to state senators loudly opposing a separate peace between the state and the Union. The 18th, he writes to General Cobb about the need for a complete usage of manpower.
In addition to the troops of all kinds, you should endeavor to get out every man who can render any service even for a short period, and employ Negroes in obstructing roads by every practicable means.
Nichols' time, he sees the war is coming to a close and is quite anxious. He is still without a command. Can he play a role in the aftermath of the war if he doesn't play a role in its end? And that's where the week ends. We see the aftermath of the election. Things have returned to normal. There hasn't been a major revolt by Democrats in the North. Most likely there won't be. The armies of Davis have not regained any of their strength, nor have the armies of Lincoln lost any. What hope has the Confederacy? What can they do to stop the oncoming onslaught of federal forces? Nothing. Hi, it's Jonathan Teagan, the entire Civil War Week by Week team. I'd like to thank you for watching as we really do enter the final stage of the war. There's about 2 major battles left, and while this... Hi, it's Jonathan Teagan, the entire Civil War Week by Week team. I really would like to thank you for watching as we do enter the final stage of the war and its reporting. I hope to see you next week.